It's 8:15. I'd like to call the Whatcom County Public Utility District #1 meeting to order. Let's start with the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So, are there any modifications or changes to the agenda? I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda as provided.
I move we approve the agenda.
Second.
There's a motion, a second. Please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Let's move on to the consent agenda. The minutes of the regular meeting, our last regular meeting, and claims for today. Any conversation?
I'll move to approve consent agenda.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Let's move on to public comment. We have two public comment periods. This is the first one. Is there anybody online or in the room who would like to make a public comment? I see no hands raised or in the room or online, so I close the public comment period. Let's move on to the general manager's report.
Thank you, commissioners. I've got quite a few items to hit, but unfortunately, they're all relatively quick. So the first thing is, I know I sent a note out. What I'd like to do is get us to take a step back here. So the Public Works Board down in Olympia has a whole bunch of people on membership on the board. One of which is nominated by the PUD Association, and then the governor goes ahead and confirms that nomination. I'm not sure if there's a legislative committee that has to approve or not, but that's a process issue. So every 5 years, at least, WPUDA has asked for a candidate, and the term of our current candidate is up. And what I'd like to do is have this commission nominate Andrew to be WPUDA's representative. And a lot of what the Public Works Board does is oversee grants and various disbursement programs. And Andrew's been on the receiving end of that kind of work for about 7 straight years between Skagit County and here. He really knows the Public Works Board, the whole commerce process. I think he'd be a good candidate from WPUDA. The other thing is, I think he would be a candidate for the full term. Now, all that being said, if they've got somebody down in Olympia, John, for instance, if they want him to be on the Public Works Board, I think that would be kind of an overwhelming by acclaim.
Or Mason.
Or Mason, or, yeah, there's a number of folks. So I'd just like to get you guys to nominate Andrew, and I think put our best foot forward, and then we just see what happens with WPUDA.
Do you need an official nomination? Or just let's do it.
Well, the note from WPUDA said nominated by the commission.
Okay.
So.
Motion and second.
Yeah, I think we need a motion in
Okay.
a second.
Okay. I move we nominate Andrew Entricken to the Public Utility Board.
The Public Works Board.
Public Works
of
Board.
Commerce, yeah.
Yeah, of Commerce.
I'm sorry, go ahead if you were the second.
Second, yes.
Before we
Yeah.
proceed,
Yeah.
I wanted to make sure to know how Andrew feels about this.
Oh, we're giving him a choice?
So I will tell you, I talked to Andrew and gave him almost, 2 weeks?
Yes.
To give me an answer, because he's got a lot of obligations
Yeah.
inside and outside. And so with that, I will let Andrew speak for himself.
Sure, thanks. I'm honored to represent the PUDs.
Great, so, do we, I guess all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, and so this, what we just approved is the motion to nominate.
Right, so now I'll go ahead and nominate Andrew this afternoon back to WPUDA, get him in their process, and then some months from now, we'll at some point, I think on the water committee, they'll probably convene a vote.
Fantastic.
And WPUDA will make a selection, so thank you, really appreciate that.
Thank you, Andrew.
Thanks.
Yeah, thanks for stepping up.
Last Friday was one of the most important days in the history of Pacific Northwest Power. Anybody know what happened?
We joined a market.
Southwest Powerful.
Join the market.
Yes.
That's right. Bonneville is our sole representative in the electric purchasing market, and they elected to go with SPP's Market Plus officially. We had known kind of unofficially that that was the choice for about 4 or 5 months, and Bonneville worked through a really exhaustive process to figure out which option was the best for the West, in their opinion. And clearly there's others who disagree with that, especially in California, which stood to benefit quite a bit from the EDAM market choice. Not surprisingly, California was benefited by something California proposed, and that benefit came at the expense of the entire West. And as we've said here, any organized market's better than a bilateral market in terms of overall efficiency. And I think the issue with SPP Plus is it's going to be regionally fair. The folks that actually benefit or pay for the whole thing will have commensurate cost responsibilities and benefit assignments. So it's I think a very, very good choice. And then what happened yesterday? First workday after Bonneville announced, Puget announced they're going with SPP Plus. So
Oh, that's, see, that one of the things if I recall, I was really hopeful that our move would motivate.
it does appear to be a
Investors.
triggering event. So
That's really good news, because the more people that are in this regional market, the better. Because it reduces what are called seams. Seems are the boundaries of one market with another market, and so it makes it easier to manage.
Seattle City Light and Pacific Core both previously confirmed for EDAM, which is the California solution. So I don't know if they're gonna go ahead and fund both solutions and pursue it simultaneously. You can. Or if they're gonna just stay in EDAM, or if they're gonna drop EDAM and go to Markets Plus. So, we'll see, but if we end up with seams, it's not the end of the world. We know how to manage that. SPP probably has 50 seams with PJM and probably another 100 seams with MISO. So they know how to handle seams. It's very doable. When I was in MISO, we traded power across the seams. If you set the tariffs up right, it's invisible to the users. And anyway, so I think the big news is that Bonneville's in Markets Plus now. It's official. It's all over, but the weeping and crying down south, and they will weep and cry and bring their hands. And
I'm not sure how much, it might say so, I'm not sure how much they'll even cry, because to some degree it was California's to lose, meaning that we went with the energy imbalance market, which is run by the California market, and so they had pole position. They could have made changes to their program. What's ironic is in the nth hour, last fall, they actually implemented some new rules or proposed items of legislation passed, which would be even more punitive to some of the transactions we would give. So it's like, they didn't hustle to get our business.
no, I totally agree with that. That's a fair assessment. They had an opportunity to win this and deliberately sidestepped that opportunity, and that's on them. So, the next thing.
It's not a pop quiz, right? My anxiety can't handle it.
I'm sorry, did I ask another question?
3 to 5 days notice for these sorts of tests. Okay, go proceed.
I'm sorry. So the next thing, and this is, we've got to celebrate the victory, right? But at some point, we've got to look at a region as needing a regional transmission organization, an RTO. And so we'll have an ISO and an RTO like all of the other organized markets have. And what an RTO is an organization where all of the transmission owners have essentially deeded operations and maintenance of their transmission grid to a third party to manage, and they manage it at a regional level for the benefit of everybody. That's just how RTOs work in general. And we will be the only large market that does not have an RTO sitting on top of it. And that will cause some inefficiencies regardless. And so I think the next step will be, we start talking about an RTO. SPP they run a great RTO as well as a great market in their current 13 state footprint. Now you're looking at an additional 9 states that they're going to have market assets in. So, you know, they would make sense for an RTO at the regional level as well. So we'll see what happens. But that's something, keep it on your radar. I would expect it to come up in 2026. And the region's gonna have to start pursuing it. As you guys know, I've been involved in one of the regional studies and that's coming to a conclusion. And it'll talk about what transmission we need regionally to get to 2050 and carbon neutrality. That's kind of the goal of that study. So we're getting closer to the study, but that's not an RTO. So, taking care of all kinds of stuff.
Vista, do we know about a Vista yet?
I think Avista is, I'll have to check. I'm,
Well, that's the other big investor on utility, and of course, Portland General Electric is.
well, there's
small.
Portland General Electric, and then there's Arizona Public Service is actually much bigger than Avista, and they've already declared for SPP plus. So has Public Service New Mexico, and I think Nevada's power is owned by Pacificor. So Nevada would be kind of sucked into the Markets Plus, or not Markets Plus, into the EDAM.
Mhm.
So we'll see what happens, but parts of Utah are Pacificor, parts of Wyoming are Pacificor. The parts that aren't Pacificor are in Markets Plus now. So it's an interesting setup. It's gonna take years to sort out, but it's gonna happen. So just a quick reminder, the strategic vision for Friday is due today, by the end of the day. We need to get that in. The output from this Friday is the input for next Friday with Mal Foster. So it's really critical that we at least get the vision completed on Friday. First step for that is each of you individually to contribute your view of what the vision ought to be.
There's our meeting on Friday.
Is it 3?
No, it's 1 o'clock,
Early.
1 to 4, I think, or 1 to 3. 1
Here.
to 4, 1 to 4.
Set for 1 to 4.
Are we doing it by Zoom or is it here?
I think it's here.
You both here, yeah.
Yeah.
One from Monday, okay.
Yeah, it's gonna be hybrid. I will be flying in from the East Coast. So I'll be, you guys will see me on the screen or not, but I'll have the phone on and just to let you know that's there. On the backup, there was an article that was put out by,
Wrote that thing in? I think it was the Oregon Public Radio.
okay, yeah, OPR or somebody, and it was in ProPublica or I forget who picked
Is
the
this the
thing.
one that Todd just sent us?
It
Yeah,
is.
yeah. I
It
read
is. Andrew sent me the article yesterday. I had a reaction to it and I asked him not to forward it to everybody because I thought it was fundamentally a very biased hit piece.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, so I mean,
Hot take.
it just ignored the fact that half the transmission is owned by investor owns in the West, that it's not all Bonneville.
Mhm.
That hundreds of projects have gone through Bonneville's queue and they're languishing because you can't get by the NIMBYs to actually build anything. So that's a struggle throughout the West. It's got nothing to do with Bonneville, although Bonneville's heavily involved in it. It also neglects the fact when they look at this huge growth of transmission between 1960 and 1990, and then nothing since then. Well, the reality is it was being built out to serve the smelters, and then starting in 1990, they closed down, and we lost about 15 gigawatts of smelters in that time period, and that's how growth has been absorbed. It's been transferred from, formerly the direct service industries to the tier 1 customers. And you can do that without building out your transmission. And so that's why you have this gap in major transmission. But at the same time, there are places where transmission's been identified as a need. And we haven't been able to get there in that 30-year period. But largely, it's not Bonneville's queue issue, it's the needs.
I mean, it was an interesting article all the way. It was anti-Bonneville, anti-Democrat, anti-public power. It seemed like, I mean, it was very anti-green energy. It really came at you.
It was not it was a highly biased article. I kind of expected better from OPR, but anyway. Just a couple of things on May 30th. Wapuda and the WUC are holding a combined meeting in Olympia. I'm gonna be down there personally to attend that. It's going to be an overview. Bill Clark is going to talk about a number of things, but largely focused on municipal water law and its impact on PUDs and other organizations. So just to let you know, it's a Friday. I'll be down there for that. I'll head down Thursday afternoon and head back Friday afternoon.
Will that be, will there be a hybrid option for that?
I don't know. I can find out.
I'd
Interested?
love to just listen in.
Yeah, well, I think it's the regular water meeting.
Oh, it is a
for
water-
Laputa.
The water workshop.
Yeah, no, it's not the water workshop, but it's just a water meeting of
Yeah,
the water.
I don't want to
committee.
travel down, but if I could, yeah, if there's a Zoom option, I'd like to.
There usually is, and it's at the Laputa headquarters.
And that's not this Friday, but the week from Friday,
I think it's 2 weeks from
2
Friday.
weeks from Friday.
Yeah, it's May 30th.
Okay,
There's that.
okay.
In August, there's a meeting on the future of transmission generation in the West, and it's being held August 20th through 24th. I'm just letting you know, it's a meeting that I'm hoping to attend, and just to let you know, it doesn't interfere with any commission meetings or anything like that. You all know that I did go, last item on my list, I did go to the NWPPA E&O Engineering Operations Conference. And one of the things they asked was, anybody got any ideas for seminars? And I said, well, I do. You can talk about fusion. And anyway, they got real excited. They got so excited, they invited me to be part of the steering committee for the E&O conference. So the kickoff meeting for that is July 22nd. That is conflict with our second commission meeting in July. So with your permission, I'll be down at the E&O conference, steering committee kickoff, and Kurt has agreed to cover for me in that meeting. If you guys are all right with that,
I think that's great.
okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna support you in that thing, because, they need enthusiasm in the public part community, and you've got enthusiasm, so.
Well, and it's kind of fun. My targets were 3 different fusion companies and the general manager of Chelan, Kurt, because they are hosting Helion, which is supposed to be online and delivering power to the grid in 2028.
So I'll bring up the open house, we were gonna do that sometime by the end of July,
Yes,
okay.
yeah, I haven't set a date for that yet, but we've been working on getting presentations together and going through all that.
We actually have a tentative date and I'll be emailing you all later.
Oh, okay,
today to
great.
Make sure that it works for everybody.
That's it for me. Do you have any questions?
Yeah, I just wanted to, some of the correspondence that Chris and I had, one thing is, talking to George, the general manager at Snohomish, have you been able to connect with him and see if there's,
Skagit.
what did I say?
Snohomish.
Skagit, that's offensive, sorry.
Yeah, it's Harlow, not Sioux, that's all.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't know why I did that,
Sorry.
at Skagit PUD,
He hasn't responded to me yet.
okay,
And
yeah,
I do think last time I talked to him, they had it all together.
Yeah, I'm sure they had it all
I talked to
together.
him at the.
yeah, so I talked to Nick, I did have a quick conversation with Nicholas on the energy committee.
Uh-huh.
And I suggested maybe Chris would like to talk about where we are with geothermal. Because it'll just be down in Skagit, right, in July.
Right.
So it might make good sense or you are delegated to, you can nominate.
Well.
But anyway, just give an update to the Laputa community and where we are with geothermal, I think we appreciate it. And Nicholas is really excited about the idea, so hopefully. I didn't
We'll
cause a
circle back
problem.
with Nicholas and see if he's got time on the agenda or
Yeah,
not.
15-minute, 20-minute update.
Yeah, my sense was that they already had a full agenda, but.
Okay,
that-
yeah, and also you guys have practical issues too, so I'll leave that in your capable hands.
All right, thank you.
Hopefully I didn't create a problem for everybody. I just wanted to mention that. And then I'll provide the other updates in my commissioner reports, thank you.
Okay, I am done. I am calling you first for the operations report.
Certainly, yes. Kirk, please
Hey,
go
good
ahead.
morning, commissioners.
Morning.
We've got a couple items. So we just had the electrical transmission line. We had that air drone flown over the last week. that's always a really good thing. They get a lot of detailed pictures, and it's actually a pretty rapid activity. It happens pretty quick, and they give us a lot of detailed photos, and we get to have a viewpoint that would take a lot of time and manpower to take care of. So we just had that done. Another testing um, activity. Chris ran into somebody at a conference or something, and there's this new device where uh, linemen would test poles with a hammer, basically to see how worn the pole was, if it was still good, and basically it was just one of those skills that someone would learn. You listen to the sound and how hard the hammer hit. But someone's developed a device where you actually have, it's like a rubberized pallet that has a testing wire, and then there's a device on the opposite side of the pole. And so it's more exact. And so we're gonna have someone come out and test all of our poles. And so that's an activity that's going to be happening soon, and we'll be able to get testing and record it, and then come back next in subsequent years and test it again, and then we can kind of get a baseline of all of our transmission poles. Next thing is we're starting to do vegetation management for the year, which we do all the time. We have people out mowing and doing some spraying of plants to keep all the lines clear. And then one last thing, we just had an intake pump pulled here at Plant 2 as a maintenance activity. We pulled that pump out last week, and that's going to get a refurbished to maintenance on it, and then we'll be replacing that when it's all done. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer any.
I have a couple questions, Kurt. Pretending that I don't know anything about poles because
Okay.
I don't. We're testing to see if they're like rotten?
Yes,
they
that's
don't fall
one thing.
over?
Can I
Okay.
interject her? Because
Sure.
I've done this lots of years. So what you do as a lineman is something called a thump test. You bonk the pole with a hammer. It's that sophisticated. You bonk it.
And see if it's hollow.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And you'll
okay.
hear a thunk or a thunk,
Uh-huh.
and the thunk means you've got a hollow core. And so you just call that a thump test. Well, the problem is you can have a hollow core, but you still got 3 inches of shell. That pole's perfectly fine.
Okay.
You may want to drill into it and then drop a fumigant into the hollow core. It's hollow because you've got fungus growing in there, and or termites or something. But that's why it's hollow, and it will get more hollow. On the other hand, if you only have an inch of shell, you don't have mechanical strength left on the pole, and the next high wind is probably coming over all on its own.
Mm.
So it sounds almost the same on the thump test. The lineman can sometimes, depending on the lineman, really tell the difference between a 3-inch shell and a 1-inch shell, and they can say, oh yeah, this thing uses ultrasound, almost like imaging for a child, and it's got the sensor on one side of the pole and a specialized hammer that gives you an exact impact that you use. So it gives you a consistent thunk, and then it actually gives you an image of what the void looks like, and you can do it at 3 different levels. And yeah, I worked on one of these things in the 90s. We just couldn't make it work. The technology wasn't there. We ended up with, you needed a PhD in electrical engineering to interpret what came out of the thing at each pole, and it was like, we'll just bore holes and test. But now it's perfected. Looks like it's a good thing. This guy claims he can do 250 poles in a day all on his own.
Wow.
I think if you can kind of like run pole to pole to pole, and you've got someone driving, that's probably realistic. So 2-man team, yeah, 250 poles a day. If you're actually bore testing, which is the industry gold standard, 2-man team, you'd be lucky to get 15, maybe 20 poles a day.
Oh, wow.
On a long day, you might get 30. So you're talking about a huge improvement in productivity.
Now, is this a complete, then this vendor then takes on the entire responsibility for providing a recommendation on a pole replacement? Meaning, do we no longer have to keep any expertise in-house or develop expertise in-house for, are there other subjective criteria that you look at that could trigger a pole replacement?
So when they do the inspection, what they end up with is a profile of the void, if any, inside the pole. And then they take a step back and take a look at what's going on with the top of the pole, because you can have a good butt and a split top, and you need to replace the pole. You know, conversely, you have a good top, everything looks great there, and then a bad butt, and you gotta replace the pole. So, they will go ahead and make a recommendation, but it goes into our asset management process to determine where that is. You know, do we go with, kind of the rule of thumb, which is when you hit an inch of shell, you declare it a critical pole and you replace it immediately. You know, where you have those thresholds is set up by us. The good news for us is we've got hundreds of poles, not thousands. If we ended up with a much larger system, we'd probably want to buy this and keep it all in-house.
And is that what PSC does? Does PSC have
I
their,
don't know.
are they using the same technique? The reason is because we are asked to replace poles on occasion with broadband.
I've seen boreholes on Puget poles. I think they're actually still drug testing.
So what I'm just gonna suggest here is that the more this industry adopts, objective measures, the more consistent it will be and the less arbitrary replacement will happen.
Yeah, Puget's got their asset management programs in really good shape that way. And I think right now theirs has been filed with the UTC. And for them to adopt a new technique would require reauthorization, and they probably just push back and say, we're drilling. And they're just proceeding with that.
Okay, just bring it.
Yeah, I'm sure they know about this. It's not a secret.
This is a resource that if an entity had like Blaine or Sumas or PUD, it could be leased and shared for services to be done.
Yeah, what they do is they download into the GIS of your choice. And then they give you the format, so you get it back with, you know, Latin long for each pole, and it's in your Esri GIS or whatever GIS you're using. Intergraph is the other big one. And they just dump it in there as a file, and then you can use it however you have your asset management program set up, you use it.
So this could be a service that
It is set up as
Blaine could
it is set up
purchase
as a
from-
service, yeah.
from the PUD or whomever.
Well, from these guys, yeah. I mean, I guess we could, we'd have to get a contractor's license for us to do work for others. So there'd be an issue with that, but
Oh, that's cool.
it is really
Yeah,
cool.
yeah.
So, sorry, Kurt,
Yeah.
I've just been doing this since the eighties, and
Do they still make those poles in Macomb County?
I don't think so. I think
Osier
Osier,
still
yeah.
operating. So I used to supply pole treating oil in a prior life, for the pole treating industry, so. Also,
yeah, the poles we bought last time are not doing so well. I'm a huge fan of copper naphthenate, and those poles are gonna have to be treated in Mexico. The stuff that,
pentachlorophenol.
yeah, the penna is, you put that in a nice wet environment, 9-10 years, you gotta replace the pole. And, you know, a lot of our poles are along ditch lines and
But,
things
yeah,
like
copper
that.
naphthalate is illegal now, right, in the US?
Well, it's not illegal to use and to introduce into the environment. There's some byproducts in the manufacturing that people have said, you know, we're not even gonna deal with this in the continental United States because of disposal issues. So it's now done in Mexico, and
And it's gonna cost a heck of a lot more to ship it here.
well, I mean, they
Right,
make
and that's
the copper nap.
that's the brownfield issue at Osier too.
Well, they make the copper nap in Mexico, ship it here, and then the treatment is done. There's a place in Skagit where they do the copper nap.
Hmm.
I forget the name of it. It's anyway, I forget the name of it.
Okay, thanks.
Poles,
Good,
sorry.
good poll discussion.
Stella Jones.
One other question, what do we spray with?
That's right.
You were talking about doing some,
I don't know specifically. I can find
only
out.
the good stuff though, right? Not the.
Oh, yeah, it's a good stuff.
Not Roundup or like,
I can find out.
It's Roundup probably.
is it?
It's
But
it's for
I
killing
don't-
weeds.
I don't know if that's the case or not. I know one of them is a growth retardant that you use on trees. It doesn't kill the tree, it just slows it down. Something different.
Well, we're not doing any trees. It's all just around fence lines and everything that have been done for years. So
Right, it's probably some form around.
Conservation distribution.
Don't you have goats?
I
You
do.
should, you could hire his goats,
Goats.
then we don't have a
No,
problem with just.
that would be a conflict of interest.
yeah, right.
I'll let lend you my goats for nothing.
John's shaking his head, no way,
He's got
No
goats.
goats.
not at
You
all.
can't have my goat.
John, why no go?
I am curious to know what we're
Okay.
using.
Go, no
Can't do
go.
what?
Contract one.
This is the go, no go decision.
You can't. You cannot have
He
an
cannot
interest,
have a comment.
interest in.
Oh, no, I get that, but I
Yeah.
mean, there's other people out there. that-
Yeah, there's lots of goats, that was just.
Hey,
no
yeah,
goats here.
Blaine School District used goats.
Yeah.
Clear.
We just keep them here as mascots and then just.
Yeah. No, but I am interested to know what we're
Okay,
using.
I can find out.
Kind of most, that's broad spectrum herbicide.
Kurt, anything else from operations?
Nope.
Yeah,
All right, thanks, commissioners.
thank you.
I would suggest we move on to old business.
Yes, if there's nothing else, let's move on to old business.
I'd like to call on Andrew to give us a broadband update and then a geothermal update.
And if you can mention our meetings too, that we had last week too.
And would you like to sit up here or?
Sure. Good morning, commissioners. I brought my notes to make sure I covered everything today. So I'll start with the Point Roberts project. If we back up, you might know from previous updates that we were hit with a higher than anticipated PSC make ready costs for all the pole work to the tune of 1.1 million, which created about just over $500,000 budget shortfall. So that was one of those project exit ramps. But we were able to ask the state for 750,000 to cover that shortfall and then build in a little bit of a buffer as well, which was approved. So that was the good news. And next step was on to the cultural resources and tribal consultation. And we mentioned in previous updates that we developed a monitoring and inadvertent discovery plan with Drayton Archaeology. And from there, we met with DAP, the Department of Archaeology and Historic Preservation, and in conjunction with the Lummi tribe. And what we learned is that basically the entire point is sensitive to any ground disturbing activity. We had originally thought maybe just in the known cultural areas, which are just a few parts around the point, but the tribe and the state blanket the entire point. So basically, no ground disturbing activities, or if you do, anything involving a ground disturbing activity would require a permit and an on-site archaeologist. So like a small, like a shovel to, small hole in the ground to test for wetlands, a permit and on-site are a down guy installed off of the pole, same thing. And a bigger concern was they are asking for no boring activities, which is a big deal for a broadband infrastructure project for underground. So by not having boring and doing other techniques would, of course, just increase the overall cost of that underground work. So to accommodate the tribe and the state, we've decided to rescope the project and have no ground disturbing activities. When it comes to the pole replacements, we'll have PSC replace the poles in place, eliminating any need for new ground disturbing activities. But what that means is that we'll have to update all of the design work and resubmit it to PSC for that updated make ready work. And as you know from previous updates, that first go around took almost 9 months for us to get all the make ready work. So it could be another 9 months as well. We're on a timeline here because we need to have this project wrapped up by December of 2026. So in short, the verdict is to eliminate all underground disturbing activities, which means we would do a scope of work change and eliminate those customers who would have otherwise received an underground draw. And we've discussed this with the Port of Bellingham, and they're in agreement with that decision to move forward. So we wanted to bring that to your attention before we move forward with the formal scope of work change with the state.
Well, one of the things that I'd like to know is if there's anything we can do in talking to PSC to make them aware that obviously the pole replacement is a win for PSC and for us and for the community. So if obviously we can't complete the project in time, we can't do the pole replacement. So for that reason, could we encourage PSC to complete the redesign more quickly? And are there, certainly I can talk to Brian and, I mean, you can all talk to your counterparts.
Yeah.
I would like to know if there's, if there, how you're feeling about that redesign time and is anything we can do to support you?
Well, Chris, feel free to chime in. I'm feeling like but it's simply the way that this project can move forward and have some success is by pursuing with the staff's recommendation.
Yeah, I think the issue with Puget is, Andrew's been whipping them the whole time. You know, I mean, like, you know, like the House whip in,
Yeah.
in the legislature. Not
Meeting them,
physically
not
whipping
physically
them,
harming.
but
That's
I'm,
great.
he's
Lobbying.
been hard. He's been lobbying him the whole time. Otherwise, it probably would have been a year and a half instead of 9 months to get this out. They're supposed to turn these around in 30 days. It's really, it's a frustrating process. So with this one, since we're essentially eliminating most of the work that they had, or a lot of the work they had priced out, it'll be simple in that regard. The pole replacement itself, if you're gonna replace a pole in place, it essentially needs 2 crews or at least 1 extra line truck. Because the way you do that is you take pole jacks and you pop the pole out of the ground, and then you have a truck that holds the pole in the air with everything
I've
still
seen
on
it,
it.
yeah.
Yeah, and then you have the regular line crew come in, set the new pole in the same hole that the old one just came out of. And then tie everything in and transfer and then cut up and remove the old pole. So that's physically how it works. You just need more people there. So Puget will need to re-estimate that, and we're not sure how many that is, but unfortunately every pole replacement. The issue with the anchors is not so straightforward. Some of the anchors we should just be able to connect to, others will need a new anchor, and then, you know, you're back to a ground disturbing activity with an archaeologist observing, and you've got to have a plan in place so that should you discover anything, you can shut down immediately and, you know, get the archaeologist input and to see what you can do. So I think that that was a long answer. The short answer is that we're gonna be pounding on Puget the whole time. If you think talking to Brian will help, I mean, we've talked to Brian, and it's just their engineering group's gonna work at their engineering group's speed, and there's just not a lot you can do about it. That's unfortunate. Now, what that means in terms, you have to have the make-ready work done before you can go in there and do any new fiber work. So, you know, it's conceivable that you complete all the make-ready work and now you're in November of 26.
Right, there,
And
okay,
then
so
you're
I'd like to
getting a
propose
lot.
something. I'd like us to propose, going back to Barbara and office and consider a hybridized solution for Point Roberts. I know we spent a lot of money in engineering already.
So we looked at the hybrid solution formally with our contractors, and they went ahead and did a frequency study. Because of the canopy up there, a 5G solution, either licensed or unlicensed, does not work. We asked them specifically to look at that, and they did. So for them, you know, their conclusion was, you know, you can study this all you want. Somebody will come in and say, oh yeah, we can provide coverage, but the reality is they can't. And the canopy is just too dense up
What
there.
about lower frequencies? Because, one of the things that what was on D&G said that they're also entering into a new agreement with some lower frequency bands, and perhaps those lower frequency bands would not run into the same conflict in the TV white space frequencies.
So, go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, part of this is because it's grant funded, you have to adhere to specific speed measurements. And so you can hit the minimum requirements of the speed goals, but you have to have scalability to 100 by 100 symmetrical to meet the terms of the grant. And the wireless component can't reach that, in part due to the tree canopy, as Chris mentioned.
Yeah, but didn't D&G or what was on whatever, say to us that that the technology that they're talking about from Google, I believe it was Google, right? What was the name they gave, they said for that? Do you remember that name?
I don't off the top of my
But
head.
it was
I
a
don't
name,
write it
it was a
down.
brand name for the technology. They said 500 megabits down and 100 megabits up. We should double check that. I'm just throwing this out here, like, I mean, okay, we've got a major speed bump on Point Roberts. We gotta consider being creative on this, so I'm just throwing this out there.
We can go ahead and ask Vin to have a look at it again, and just, you know, give them the actual, trade name for it.
Yeah, I forgot, I wish I would have made a note of that. I forgot what the name of that trade name of that
We'll
technology
figure
is.
it out, Andrew's got it. I think the point is, though, that we did ask that question of our professional engineers, and
Yeah,
they took a look at
I'm
it
sure you did, yeah.
and determined that there wasn't a viable solution there that would satisfy the grant. So what we were doing was eliminating the underground, and that was 300 customers.
Yes.
This could be a deal killer for Point Roberts.
We're kind of heading that way, yeah, in terms of either the timing or the cost.
And look, this is a big thing for, I mean, we know Point Roberts suffers from poor infrastructure, period. There's articles on articles about how bad the situation in Point Roberts is. And, normally I would complain about PSC and the pole replacements, but knowing the infrastructure situation in Point Roberts, I'm like, okay, if our broadband project helps improve the reliability of the electrical infrastructure, that's a good thing.
Right.
If you know what I'm saying, normally I'd be like, but nobody can make money, a PSC can't make any money in Point Roberts either, I know that, it's too low density, so I'm just saying, this is not just a broadband project for Point Roberts, which is important, I think that's important, but it's also an infrastructure project for Point Roberts. And, as crazy as it might sound, I think it's worth talking.
Please
to
don't
others.
say another word until we're in executive session.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Good job.
It's something that's already happened,
Okay,
so let's talk about it.
okay. Okay, well, anyway, long story short, I really care about this project, and I think a lot of people really care about this project. I know the executive really cares about this project. I know Point Robertsians care about this.
We care deeply about it. We're trying to figure out a way at this point to serve the most customers by December 2026. We are up against it at this point.
That's what I got. Round 2 deadline is this Friday, so we're working tirelessly, in partnership with the Port of Bellingham. And as you know, any internet service provider in the area that wants to submit an application with the public partner, being the Port, we're opening the applications, for a collaborative, submission by the end of day Friday.
And we're working with how many partners right now?
4.
Okay. Great, that's good news.
It is, I think so too.
Yeah.
And then we're supposed to get guidance from NTIA next week.
It could happen as early as Thursday, prior to the deadline on Friday, which could include things like provisions for clawback, issuing BEAD in its entirety as basically restart to BEAD, could be a number of other things from industry professionals that, live on the Hill in DC. Hearing lots of things, but nothing confirmed until we get guidance from NTA.
And they may very well come out and just say, we like this program, proceed post haste. The only thing we don't like about it is it's taking too long. That's one, bookend outcome.
Or there could be, we can imagine the other possibilities.
Yeah, there's all kinds of other things, but the fact is, no matter who you ask, you get a different answer. And so until we see the announcement, we don't know where they're leaning on this thing. So. Wish I had a good crystal ball on that, but I do not.
I'm glad we didn't put a bunch of risk on this activity. And I'm wondering if there's anybody in our community who is really experiencing a lot more anxiety because of all this back and forth, but. Anyway.
Yeah, we'll just have to see how it plays out. We just have no idea. Any other questions on broadband?
Thanks, Andrew.
Could I continue to pick on Andrew for geothermal? A little bit out of order, but.
Yeah, and we're gonna do geothermal in executive session anyway, right?
No.
Adjudication and executive session.
I don't have anything new to update for geothermal. I know that the tribe will have a draft study, some point this summer, I think before the end of July. Or was it June?
No, before the end of June.
Before the
I
end of
think they're gonna try and get it in on, at the end of fiscal year. I think they're gonna try and get it in our hands this second week of June for comment.
Yes.
And, anyway, the report itself. The report itself looks pretty good. We've seen some of the input data from it, and, I will tell you that based on what we've seen, there's no, flashing light that says, take the off ramp. This is not a good answer. Everything we're seeing is that there's more and more good stuff as we dig deeper and deeper. So it's, so far it's all looking pretty good.
Where are we at with leasing land?
Well, kind of a mixed bag. So Andrew initially nominated most, if not all, of the lands that had been leased before, that the leases had lapsed. And then, the NUCSAC, just in the last month or so, has gone and nominated lands that never were leased in the first place. Because there were some Forest Service land, little bits and pieces all over the place. And then, it turns out there's a small amount of state-owned land that's never been nominated because state-owned, going through a national process for that. All that being said, we think the prime candidates are all in the areas that we nominated for lease. So the, Bureau of Land Management has accepted the nomination. Now they kick it over to the Forest Service. It turns out the Forest Service has a 0 to 24 month process around issuing cultural surveys and EISs and all this stuff. So they have the potential to just say, hey, this, the EISs and the surveys that were done in the last round are sufficient for this round. Boom, go ahead and lease. And it could go very, very quickly. On the other hand, they could decide, nope, that was done in 2008, 2009. So we can do it all over again. And you're looking at a 2-year period.
Or we may have fired all of the people that do that.
That apparently is not true. Apparently there's folks out there that can still do the study, so.
Oh, good,
That's some
okay.
good news. Yeah, the issue is though that if, and the NUCSAC has done this, they've nominated lands that never were nominated before. So it's always possible that, Forest Service says, well, whoa. Since you're doing new stuff, we're gonna bundle it all up and do it all in one big study.
And then it takes longer.
And then it's probably 2 years, yeah. So I think that kind of sum up where we are.
Yes,
Okay,
So frustrating.
it's frustrating. It's very frustrating.
Thanks.
And John, did you want to talk about anything on adjudication outside of executive session?
Let me get, we did have a steering committee last week. The courts had sent us a letter a week or so before, asking some questions. We started looking at some of the rules. I don't think it's going very quickly. It's, I expect the stay will be extended. The court apparently has asked us to do things, but then simultaneously is having someone at the court work on documents, and we don't know what they're doing. And so it's been a little frustrating as duplicative efforts and we raise issues to the court, for instance, last Friday or, Monday morning, excuse me, about, well, when you have the docket sheet and notice of hearings, you need to think about due process for everyone in the region who may be not e-filing or having to do paper filing, and how do they get notice and timely notice. And the court, well, we haven't thought about that. We'll give it some consideration. So it's kind of like, that's a kind of fundamental.
That's not the first time you brought that up.
No, and it's kind of a fundamental issue about, at least some electeds think it's a fundamental issue, due process. So it's, so we'll cross those bridges. But I think it's.
Politely thrown a grenade.
But it's, I think that, there's a stay through the end of June. I wouldn't be surprised if that gets extended for the court to serve, stay on motions. They've had about 500 claims filed so far. 20,000 parties they're guessing will be involved. There'll be a process for voluntary dismissal if you don't think you have a water right, or you cannot do anything. You'll be taken out of the case on kind of May 1st next year if you don't file anything. So
Okay.
those are the public summaries on it.
Any questions for John on adjudication?
For due process.
I'm good.
So a quick update on the strategic plan. You guys have, the next 3 Fridays have been zapped on your calendar. So the first one is with Karina to firm up where we are on vision and values for the utility, but especially the vision. The second of the 3 meetings is with Mal Foster, and that will be your first group meeting with Mal Foster. I think they've been, have they reached out to you for individual interviews yet? Okay, that's part of the process, so they'll be doing that. And I'm not sure what the timing is on that, but obviously there's a public meeting, because it'll just be one-on-one. So they'll work with each of you separately on that. So this Friday, it's all about vision and values. Next Friday, it's the initial kickoff with Mal Foster with the 3 of you. And they really want the vision and values as input for that meeting.
Right.
Now, recognizing that there may still be some work left to do on that, the third Friday is again with Karina to mop up anything on vision and values. And that one may or may not be needed. So it's kind of how much do we get done on this Friday? And I think all three of them are scheduled to be hybrid meetings, although I would just encourage.
Sure. So on that, I would like to find out if it would be okay with everyone if we start this Friday's meeting at 1:15 instead of 1.
I find that to be a reasonable change, yeah.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Okay, I have transit time, so. Okay with everyone?
It's fine, I'm gonna have to be phoning in,
Yeah.
so it's just a,
And I won't be able to attend.
Yeah, so,
Should
um,
Karina's
is
probably.
it if I just send an email to Karina and, or would you
just let Joseph do that.
just, will you do
Yeah,
that?
because we're gonna have to change the notice
Yeah.
of time.
Are all of the 3 next Friday meetings from 1 to 4? I can't remember what the schedule said.
Yes.
I think we just grab that time, and it's likely, if you guys wanna modify that, that's fine.
Okay,
I mean, they're-
I may have to,
Oh, it's okay,
or show up late.
yeah, and
I
Oh,
got a JOB, man.
yeah, I'm wondering, so is there a time change that would be good for you?
I'll let you know. I need to look at my calendar.
But for this Friday, 1:15 is okay.
That's fine, yeah. Mhm.
okay. Then key's gonna be, we're gonna have a whole bunch of people from Mall Foster, a few of them are local,
Yeah.
here in person. And then we'll have folks that are zooming in on Friday afternoon, not this coming Friday.
The
but
next Friday, yeah.
Yeah, I'm totally comfortable with that.
Yeah, one of the ones that's gonna be zooming in is a fellow named Steve Klein, who's, he's run 2 different utilities, Tacoma Power and Snohomish PD. So he's kind of the technical functional person that's associated with Mo Foster's effort. So,
Oh, wow, that's great.
yeah, we're lucky to have him.
And just for info, we haven't made public notice on the third meeting, because we don't know for sure that it'll be needed. So
Right.
if that's one that you need to make an adjustment on, then let us know.
Okay,
We can try to arrange it beforehand
thanks.
if it becomes necessary.
Okay,
That's it for the strategic plan.
Okay, then if we're done with old business, can we move on to new business? So we've got, one item under new business, which is the, transfer of our EEI credit, to Mason County PUD.
So just as a reminder, commissioners, every year we get money allocated from Bonneville to do conservation efforts. And we do work with Phillips 66, but they're our only customer. If they're not willing to do this, then essentially that money lapses.
Right.
And it is, I don't know, $500,000 a year?
Yeah.
Something like that. And so what we proposed in the past, and we always ping Sumas and Blaine first, and in this case, I think Blaine said no thanks, and Sumas, I'm not sure we got a response from.
Correct.
But we always ping them
Mhm.
and offer it to them as, right of first refusal. And then typically Mason has been a recipient of our allocation in the past. You guys have signed a couple of letters to that effect.
yeah.
This is another one of those where we can help out another PUD that really can make use of the money. And I would encourage you to say yes and approve the motion.
Yes,
Yeah, I mean, I'll move that we approve the interlocal agreement with Mason County PUD 3 and transfer $378,000 in BPA EEI money.
I'll second.
so the motion and a second, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, commissioners. We will go ahead and execute this letter agreement and get the funds transferred.
Great.
I would recommend that you move, it's never mind.
Yeah.
Executive session, is second. Never mind, sorry.
Let's see.
Right, reports.
Yeah, we're
Yeah.
on commissioner reports, so your name's first.
No, me first. I just wanted to thank you for voting for me at the Wapuda meetings, because the schedule was different than what we had thought.
Yes, it was, yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't on Friday. That said, I did meet with the newly elected Wapuda president on Friday. She came and had dinner with me. So we spent a few hours together. And that's essentially all I have to
That's
report.
Commissioner Lester.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah. She came up for the Cascadia Film Festival and we were able to meet for dinner on Friday.
Nice.
Cascadia International Women's Festival.
Women's Festival, Women's Film Festival, yeah,
Festival.
yeah. We're looking at maybe creating a film.
Oh, really?
Yeah, our women-led organization.
That's
Farm.
awesome.
Want to
Yeah.
see some girl farmers?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. We have a YRO one board meeting coming up that I hope they don't cancel.
No, we're having it.
It's happening this time.
It's happening, and
Great.
part of the agenda is mine. I'm gonna bring up, essentially water banks. And
Oh, good.
that we really ought to be looking at that as a watershed.
Yeah.
And that will require legislative help, that
Yeah.
will, there's all kinds of things that need to happen. Do you want us to proceed and look into it? That's.
The agricultural community here in Whatcom County is looking into water banks already, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, that's
kind of.
great.
Yeah, they're working with me to try and figure out what makes sense.
Yeah, okay. That's it. Thank you.
Great. If, the common committee on water bank, one of the things that I wanted to do was attend the watershed management team to get your presentation. I didn't get the benefit of that. I ended up having some other conflict, but look forward to hearing about it when.
Yeah, it's not a big presentation. It's, here's what a water bank is, and, here's the pros and cons. Do you want us to investigate further? As water one, hopefully that.
Yeah, and we're
Board
currently
said yes.
precluded from getting ecology funding on water banking based on some prior law, and is the change we're asking to be able to get ecology support on water bank?
We're not there yet. The question is, does the governing board want us to investigate it? To the point where we begin, okay, here's what we need. Here's the path we'd like to try and follow. Here's what's in the way. And here's what we need to do to solve those problems.
Okay.
And the board may very well go, gosh, that's nice. We've looked at this before. We're not interested.
Okay,
Or they may say, yep, go ahead and do it. And that doesn't mean that we're gonna have a water bank next week. It means that at some point we'll be bringing back a full-blown study to the board saying water bank either makes sense or it doesn't. Here's what form we would recommend if you want to move forward, and here's what we gotta do. So, we're
Well, good. I'm
way
looking
away.
forward to the meeting.
cool. Hey, would you like to go next?
All right, I don't have too much to report. Yeah, looking forward to getting into our strategic planning process. I'm the one who has to get Karina our, the vision document tonight, to keep us on track, but,
You and everybody else.
Almost everybody.
Gold
You
star.
stop rubbing it in?
Hey, I'm trying to motivate you guys.
Yeah. Mine's finished, I told you.
okay, I thought I was the only one, so that's. Okay. I am planning to attend the Whatcom Council of Governments meeting tomorrow. Couldn't attend the first quarterly meeting, conflicts with PUD, so I'm looking forward to that. I want to confirm that if it was on me to add that into my per diem requests, or if that was included.
I'm not sure if that was one of
Joseph,
your
do you know?
ones or not.
What was
Welcome
it?
Council of Governments is on your plate,
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah,
You-
I was
you need to
assigned
get it
to
first, yeah.
it,
Yeah.
yeah, so I don't need to.
Yeah, we're
request
good.
It's on.
Yeah.
But it's
Okay.
nice that you shared it with me. So.
Yeah, confirming I'll be there and, yeah, I don't have too much else to share today.
Okay.
Fish money?
So I had, two meetings, regarding broadband, a week, 2 weeks ago, was it? Andrew participated in on both of them. I don't think I, included them in my per diem list, just because they're, would be scheduled ad hoc and all that kind of thing. But anyway, they, just mentioning them, the one was a meeting with, the electeds from, city, county, port. Just to have Andrew give an update on where we're at, and then, let the other electeds ask some questions. And then we agreed that maybe in a quarter or so, we would connect again, because then it would be on the other side of Bede, whenever we're on the other side of Bede, to check in again, because the thing that I continued is like, what are we gonna do? What is our community gonna do? It doesn't mean that PUD is doing it, but what is our community gonna do on broadband after Bede's done? Because Bede has sucked up all the oxygen as far as as far as our broadband activity, and because the federal government came in and put all this money on the table, all the effort oriented around that. Now, if you would have asked us, and if you would have asked people at the local level how money should have been allocated, it probably would have been different than how they allocated it. But the reality is, when somebody with a lot of horsepower, like the federal government comes in and says, here's what we're gonna do, you orient your efforts, okay, it's not exactly what we would like, but we're gonna work with what we got. And so that's kind of what's happened, and I'm waiting to see what happens now post-BEAD. And whenever that is, by the way, we don't know when that's gonna be exactly, but whenever that is, I look forward to bringing this group back together again and start thinking about what does our community do next? Whether it involves the PUD or not. And then there was also a meeting with D&G / Pogazon / Newbie, whatever name branding they're gonna go with. And that was really heartened me that this feeling that this one of the vendors that we're partnering with and their hybrid solution is really will beneficially impact connectivity in the community. And just FYI, but just really made me feel even more confident about the efforts we're doing to submit for this second round. I attended an EDI meeting. It's now official that EDI is gonna be allocating roughly a third towards housing. County's capital improvement program, and then traditional infrastructure, which is including broadband. Broadband falls under that traditional infrastructure. That's formalized now, and it was a big day for Paul Schisler in our community. Some of you may know him, who's worked for years and years to try to get housing considered as part of the EDI funding. It will be difficult for an EDI board member. I'm not a current EDI board member. I'm gonna have to do more homework as an EDI board member, because they're gonna want us to complete a score sheet. Now, we're a commission, and I'm the designee for the commission, but I think one of the things I'm gonna have to start doing is to, when an EDI board meeting's coming up, and the next one's coming up in August, that I take a minute to check in with the commission on what is being discussed and get input from the commission as our EDI representative, and probably get in some specific follow-up in our maybe weekly check-ins. Because I'm gonna have to fill out a form, and I don't feel comfortable filling out a form without checking with you all. So just letting you know that it's EDI board membership is gonna become a pretty demanding membership.
Good to know.
I attended PPC. It was the least enjoyable meeting I've attended in the last couple of months, because the connection was absolutely terrible. I feel like I wasted 2 hours in that meeting. A lot of garbled input. Having said that,
That's interesting.
it was a Zoom connection
Well, no, I was on Zoom here and it was fine.
Were you at home?
on Thursday or Wednesday.
Oh, gosh, I don't know. I've been on like 5 PPC meetings in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, so, yeah, it was terrible, the one at the hotel, and I didn't go to the Thursday because Thursday was also EDI. So maybe they fixed it on Thursday, but Wednesday was terrible, Wednesday afternoon from 3 to 5. Anyway, I did the best I could, but I don't think I really understood anything besides, stuff that I already knew, which was the happiness over the SPP decision. And then the last thing is, Deborah's asked me to help plan a social event for the July meeting, so I'm excited about that, and I've been throwing ideas back and forth with Deborah on that.
Oh, fun.
But it probably involves, as I've said before, no, not karaoke, inventing a new Wapuda line dance that we will do
The public power line dance.
to the song It's Electric.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. It'll have to have relatively basic movements, because we're talking about some commissioners who are getting on in years.
Well, you've seen me dance.
And it can't be too difficult, but I will develop a new trademark dance for Wapuda commissioners. And Chris has agreed to lead it. No, just kidding.
His face.
That's my report.
Incorporate the electric slide.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Or maybe
That's
a
fine.
highly toned down version of the
Yeah.
electric.
I'll take it.
And to clarify, this is at the July Wapuda meetings in Skagit County, right?
Yeah.
Deborah is the newly elected
Yeah.
president of the Wapudas.
Want to get to see a brand new service center down there that was purpose designed for a utility, and they've done a really good job with it. I got a tour of it a couple months ago from George, and outstanding.
Yeah, actually, you bring that up, I did have some great conversations with, General Manager George Sidhu from Skagit at the Wapuda conference, and he did invite me to tour some of their facilities, and just wanted to see if anyone else wanted to be included in that, if I, made steps to arrange it, but, yeah, no.
Yeah.
Would you, yeah, I mean, I guess if we,
So just remember, you're there on business, it's a
Yeah.
public meeting.
So
it
we
would
have
be a
to
public
notice.
meeting, I guess,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, I guess I'm extending that to staff then, for,
Yeah,
I mean, we can do that anytime.
Yeah, okay.
George has opened that door for us, so.
right,
Yeah.
yeah, it's not far or anything. So,
No.
yeah.
no, you go do it.
But yeah, I'm just interested to, yeah, just see their water facilities and, learn more about their operation in comparison.
All right.
Okay, so, nothing else in the commissioner reports, so, we'll do our next, public comment, and then, after that, we've got an executive session, no action planned for that, but, any public comment? See no hands raised in the room or online, so, close our second public comment period, and now we're going to adjourn into executive session.
Commission. I think we had planned an hour on the executive session, so I don't know if we want to change the end date to 10:30, the end time to 10:30.
Let's do 10:30, take a 5-minute break.
Yeah, okay,
Sweet.
sounds good.
Nothing like finishing.
All right, so I guess we'll take a break now
Yep.
and reconvene at 9:30 and.
Convene into executive session. We just left, executive session, no action was, we're live, right?
Yeah.
No action was taken, and, if there's nothing else for the good of the order, I'd like to call the meeting to close.
Okay, let me-
Yeah.
You're adjourned, okay.
Okay.